provides information to folks. I spend quite a bit of time with the ag people, but so we look at wind data for things like spraying, but wind data is also critical for firefighters to prescribe burning. We have rainfall data for flood control and warnings, air moisture data for pinpointing where storms will build. And what is amazing to me after all these years is that data, you can see a statewide picture of any of that, and it's updated every 5 minutes. So if you're in a critical situation trying to control a fire, or you're a meteorologist trying to predict where a tornado might spawn, you've got an updated picture of the entire state every 5 minutes, which is really amazing. And that gets us back to Ron, because it was really through his leadership at Oklahoma State University since the earliest days when discussions started between OSU and scientists at the University of Oklahoma that really brought the Mesonet into being. We asked a few folks to join us today and to share with you what the Mesonet means to our state, and also how Ron has contributed to the Mesonet. And first up is Vice President and Thomas Coon. He leads the Division of Agricultural Sciences and Natural Resources, and really that division deals with teaching, research, and extension. And for those of you from OU, extension is synonymous with outreach. Vice President Coon.
Thank you, Al. And Ron, thank you for an excuse to spend a great day out here at the Gardens. I'd like to welcome you on behalf of all of Oklahoma State University, including those of you from Norman. Actually, I think Mesonet is a great illustration of how closely our universities really can and do work together on most things other than football fields. And in fact, we actually work together on that, although they don't know it in Norman, but they are playing on our grass. Yes. Latitude 36, Bermuda grass, was developed and patented here. So anyway, but seriously, it is great to have, I think between the two universities, we have a tremendous set of expertise on all things meteorological. Of course, having the National Weather Center there in Norman is a big part of that. But of course, weather is very important to us here in Oklahoma for safety reasons, as well as for being able to carry out the commerce that we have here. Our agriculture, our natural resource management is so dependent upon weather conditions, and of course we can't change those necessarily, but being able to anticipate them, being able to adjust our practices because of the information that we have is extremely important. There is no network in the nation as dense or as complete as the Mesonet stations in Oklahoma. Our network of 120 some stations far surpasses anything any other state has done, and I think it's going to be that way for a long time. But more importantly, it's what do we do with the information from that. Agriculture today, natural resource management, all of commerce really is very intensively data driven. And for us, weather data is especially important in agriculture and natural resource management. And so having access to this kind of data is extremely important and extremely valuable, and really gives our growers, our land managers a competitive edge. So I'm really pleased that we have such a great collaborative with Oklahoma University and the scientists there and the administration. We're pleased that they're willing to accept Al in one of their buildings. If you're ever in that building, you know, it's easy to find out. His is the office that's all orange. That must hurt. But we appreciate that they're willing to put up with that. Anyway, we really do have a great partnership, and it only happened because of leaders like Ron Elliott. We really had a vision for what this could be, how valuable it could be for the people of Oklahoma, and then set about finding the resources to put this together, and then holding it together, knitting it together, and keeping it that way through his work on the steering committee. Now I have to tell you, and I shared this with Ron this morning, we ran into an obstacle on this very late in the process. to name anything at a university, you have to have the approval of the Board of Regents. And we had all of the paperwork worked out. We sent it through the processes that are required and so on. And a week before the board meeting, one of our administrators said, wait a second, I don't think we can name something after someone who's an employee. See, Dr. Elliott had retired from OSU, but we've hired him back to be a department head, and then he stopped doing that, but we still hire him just a little bit of his time in order to represent us on the steering committee, so we have that continuity of leadership. And so technically, he is an employee of Oklahoma State University, and the policy is you cannot name something after a current employee. You don't have to die, you just can't. So, although if he had died, he wouldn't have been an employee. But anyway, my administrative team was able to help the university administration see that this is a rule that probably merited bending a little bit. And the regents approved the naming here without any hesitation. And I'm really pleased because it's a great way to honor Ron and his leadership. And of course, there's a corollary station in Norman that stands as a testimony to leadership as well. So others will talk about that later. But anyway, it's great to have you here. Thanks for coming out. I'll be quiet now because the sun came out, so it's going to get really hot. But Ron, thanks for your leadership.
So next we have to share some thoughts with you is Blayne Arthur. She's Deputy Commissioner with the Oklahoma Department of Agriculture, Food, and Forestry. Deputy Commissioner Arthur.
For having me out here this morning. I actually live in Stillwater, so this was a handy drive for me this morning to come over. And I have two small kids, and my son, he's in second grade, and he said, well, what are you going to talk about? And so I was kind of explaining to him the Mesonet and how it works, and he said, well, would you ask them if it's going to snow enough this fall that we get to cancel school? So the pressure is on to know whether or not they can cancel school. But I want to tell you a little bit why the Mesonet is so important to agriculture. And I thought about this a little bit after Al had asked me to come speak with you all. And I grew up in outside of Chickasha, a little town called Vernon, and my great-grandfather and my grandfather, now my family, are wheat farmers along the Ouachita River. And if you're familiar with the Ouachita River, sometimes it gets out. We farm a lot of bottomland there. And when we originally moved to what we call our home place, my grandfather had this truck that would have what I call like super swamper tires on it, right? You know, like that the kids like to go drive through the mud. And my grandfather passed away, and my dad said, I don't know why we have this truck. You know, it doesn't make any sense. And so we sold it to somebody, you know, down the road. Then about 3 years later, you know, the 7-year flood, of course, came, and we had to take a boat from our house to get to the pavement to be able to go to school. And Al mentioned flood warning, what the rain's going to look like, and we haven't always had those tools so accessible to us. You know, you had to keep a truck in the hay barn, you know, 12 months out of the year that maybe you need to use once or twice to get you out to the road when the river got out. So having those tools accessible to everyone is indispensable. In agriculture, the pressure is on our farmers and ranchers. The population, the estimated world population by 2050 is going to be 9 billion people. You know, we're not making any more land, so that means that our farmers and ranchers have to have better tools to grow more food and fiber for an ever-growing population. And the Mesonet really figures into that because we think about here in Oklahoma, ag is the biggest user of water, and we are really, really pushed to be better stewards of all of our natural resources, including the water. So you think about for all of our folks who irrigate, when once upon a time you just had your schedule and you turned those pivots on and you irrigated even if it maybe started raining that day. Well, now they can look and they can say, okay, hey, we're not going to have to turn the pivots on tomorrow or the next day. They're saving that natural resource by just opening up their phone and looking at an app that tells them what the estimated precipitation is going to be. ready to harvest wheat. You know, you would guess that hopefully that it's going to be sunshiny, you know, for 3 weeks of wheat harvest. But it's just like the spring, it started raining. But you got these estimates from the Mesonet, these tools. Specifically to me, my husband is in the cattle business. We raise show cattle actually for 4-H and FFA kids. We have fall calving cows, and as we're all aware, even though it starts to be fall in Oklahoma, it's still really hot. So we can access the cattle comfort index and say, hey, do we need to pull these calves into the barn for the day so they don't get super, super hot? We keep them cooled off. We turn them out at the end of the day, improves the health of our animals, and to us, improves our bottom line. And that's what all farmers and ranchers, aside from, you know, growing food and fiber for people, they have to make a living. So accessing the Mesonet and all the tools that are available to us, I know Al mentioned prescribed fire. Prescribed fire is something that so many, not only our forestry division at the department, but so many producers are starting to use to better manage the pasture land here in Oklahoma. They can look at those wind speeds, they can use all of those tools and resources. And even most importantly, when it's time to spray, you know, there's a lot of pressure about what people are spraying, how they're applying it. Is it good? Is it not good? We have great resources and recorded data to say this is how our applicators are applying, they're following the label. We can look back and say, you know, they keep those records of what was applied and what the wind speed was, so we know there wasn't any drift onto their neighbor's property. So the Mesonet in so many different ways is a benefit to all sectors of agriculture here in Oklahoma, and you can just, and it's free. You know, there's not many things in agriculture that are free. And so just being able to access it quickly, that it's always working, that it's always a tool is a tremendous benefit to agriculture that I think sometimes we take for granted a little bit. So we are very glad to be here today. In visiting with Ron this morning, I actually realized that he just lives just a few miles down the road from me. So now I'm going to just expect to call him up. I'm not even going to look up the Mesonet. I'm just going to be calling Ron on a regular basis so that we can determine what we need to do for the day. So thank you all for all you do to create this partnership. It's a tremendous resource for us at the Department of Agriculture as well as all of our farmers and ranchers here in Oklahoma. And congratulations to you, Ron, and enjoy being here today. Thank you very much.
Next, we have a person who has been on the steering committee with Ron for many, many years. Goes back to the original steering committee, and that's Dr. Steve Stadler. He's a professor in geography, and Dr. Stadler.
I'm actually a climatologist, so it sort of makes sense with all this. And just as long as you want to know, the Mesonet prediction, you can tell your son, is light followed by darkness all the time. So, yeah, just in case you want to know. I've been asked to actually represent the 6-person Mesonet steering committee. And the steering committee is Norm and Stillwater group, providing guidance to, about 40 employees, something like that, that actually do the hard work of running the Mesonet work. And Ron has been the OSU co-chair of the group since the founding of the operational steering committee in 1994. But he played a pivotal role in the spin-up of the network a decade before that. He helped secure the original funding from Henry Beltman's administration. He helped gather the experts to plan instrumentation and infrastructure necessary to get over all 100 and whatever number of sites that was, working on day one and continuing working. And I rode with Ron a lot of times to Norman at the first. We used to have lots and lots of meetings with our Norman colleagues. And I think I got to know him pretty well, and he respected his colleagues and knew how to deal with problems with the minimum of upset. He knew how to tweak things to make sure it worked. Well, I remember talking with Ron about talking to each other in the car and saying, this doesn't work. Oh my gosh. Because after all, there was nothing like it in the country at that time. And then later on, we matured Ron a lot. And we said, later on, we were taking trips down to Norman and said, how do we keep this thing running? I mean, goodness gracious, it's quite a thing. So I've gone through a lot with Ron, and I appreciate his leadership. Keeping the dream alive, the dream of the Mesonet network, is always been a priority task. And Ron's contacts and savvy with Oklahoma and federal agencies have produced a considerable array of partners who use the data and help to subsidize the Mesonet's costs. On the management side, he has delved deeply, maybe not always eagerly, into budget matters to make sure we are the best possible stewards of those funds, and there is considerable fiduciary responsibility involved with our steering committee, and Ron, Kevin, done such a good job. Ron has always been vigilant. I think this is the thing that makes the thing go. Always been vigilant to ensure that the OU-OSU partnership, which is now, by the way, it's now codified in state law that we both run a Mesonet together, that it remains a true partnership and with give and take. To his credit, the tones of our meetings are positive with productive outcomes. I wish my faculty meetings were as fun as these meetings. But there are free exchanges of opinions, and the steering committee tries to reach viable solutions, giving lots of competing complications and factors. Ron's faithfully worked with our OSU administrators to keep them in the loop and keep them on our side, and we're just so pleased over the years that our administrators have been with us and behind us. Many times he's gone down to Norman to explain and press the OSU point of view for the good of the system and good of all. And there's been a lot of stuff done there, we think. And then we can't neglect the efforts he's devoted to, I'm going to put my air quotes on now, to educate our legislature and the Oklahoma higher regions to what's going on. And again, those kinds of efforts, he and others, have just been golden. Ron has a farm boy heritage, and it's consistently led him to be aware of what the farmer rancher might think of the system. The very best OSU tradition of cooperative extension, he's made sure that the system is for the benefit of all Oklahomans, not just sort of some of us weather geek kinds of people. We've come a long way, and with this system, and there was no widespread internet when we started. We didn't invent it, but there was just nothing. We couldn't do it that way. When we first started, a user had to dial up a system, our system, on a modem connection and translate that as a relatively sophisticated computer user for that time. Now users can download huge amounts of material on mobile devices. And you all have your Mesonet app on, don't you? On the smartphone? Oh, good. Good. And free, of course. And it's gone beyond whatever its founders ever conceived of. It's just such a wonderful thing, and it's wonderful to be associated with it. And I think everybody on the steering committee has ever been on a steering committee points that out. Ron has always point out that it has been a cooperative product of many helping hands. But he's considered a first among equals on the steering committee. Ron, your fellow steering committee members are proud to have your long-term leadership, and this site is a very fitting honor and much in the spirit of the Mesonet commitment to Oklahoma. Thank you, Ron.
Well, next we have the person who really maintains the Mesonet on a day-to-day basis and provides leadership that way, and that's Dr. Chris Fiebrich. He's Mesonet manager. He's also the associate director of the Oklahoma Climatological Survey, and he fills a really critical role in pulling together all of the different parts of Mesonet to make it all function. Chris?
Well, I want to say a few words about Dr. Elliott on behalf of the team of scientists and engineers that have worked on the Mesonet project. As administrator of Mesonet activities at Oklahoma State University in the late 1980s, Ron has worked harder than anyone to make the Mesonet a reality over these past 27 years. It was Dr. Elliott and Dr. Ken Crawford who joined forces to propose and plan the Mesonet. Not only the science and technical details of the network, but also the practical and logistical components of such a system. I've been the manager of the network for 14 years, and there's never been a time that Ron hasn't been available to help and guide me. And I greatly appreciate that. Not only is Dr. Elliott a bright scientist, he's also the first person to give real life and practical perspective to issues regarding our network, whether that be purchasing vehicles for our field technicians, conducting soil core analysis, and balancing our budgets. The Mesonet's been called the greatest example of the state's two largest research universities working together in partnership, and I'm an OU employee. And I have to say that with Ron being the OSU champion on this partnership since the beginning, I just can't overstate the importance of your leadership. Ron, your impact on literally hundreds of staff and students associated with the Oklahoma Mesonet has been immense. We've had over 80 full-time staff and over 100 students that owe their careers and their work experience to your hard work and dedication. So on behalf of the current staff and students on the Mesonet team, we are thrilled to dedicate this site to you in your honor. And I want to present to you this memento from this day that's been signed from all of us staff. Thank you, Ron.
One of today's invitations with a bunch of autographs. Appreciate it, it's really kind of overwhelming. I'd like to thank everyone up here for their kind words, two kind words. I'd like to thank all of you for being here. I had no idea this many folks show up, and I know you have other things you could be doing on a nice fall morning, so I do appreciate your attendance here. I'm just really excited that we have a Mesonet education and demonstration site here, quite close to campus. It's in a great setting. There's going to be many visitors every year come by here to learn more about the Mesonet, to be able to see it in person. So I'm excited for that future. And it's as an educational outreach site, I think it's particularly neat that the installation sort of coincides with the 100th anniversary of the Cooperative Extension Service in America. So that really ties into the education. As far as the naming of the site, well, I'll just say that my Mesonet colleagues at both OSU and OU pulled a fast one on me. Dr. Coon was in on the planning as well. I know there were several. A few weeks ago, they finally told me what was up about the naming, and I was literally speechless, wasn't I? Chris called me, and I was speechless. And those of you that know me know that for me to be speechless is a very rare occurrence, but it did happen. I'd like to thank Al and Chris and everyone on the Mesonet team, just like the Mesonet itself takes a team effort putting on an event like this does as well, and I'd like to thank all that have been involved. I'd also like to thank Lou and Ella, who's the director of the Botanical Garden here, does a wonderful job at that, and the OSU Department of Horticulture and Landscape Architecture for allowing us to be our host for this site. And the Oklahoma Ag Experiment Station and the OSU turf research guys that work over there, they've also, this kind of one big operation here, and they've been very supportive as well. I'd like to introduce my family members who are here today. I guess you're all in the front row. My wife Judith, you want to raise your hand? She's been around me longer than Mesonet's been around me. I got to thinking, I probably can't count the number of evenings over the years when I happen to mention to her that I have a Mesonet meeting tomorrow. That was a pretty common occurrence. It still is. It's great that our son Michael here and his wife Emily could come up from the Dallas area to be with us today. I got to thinking, Michael was born about the time the initial chats about the possibility of a statewide network came about in the late 80s. So maybe some childhood. And also here are two of Judith's sisters, Teresa Cunningham and Becky Edwards, and Callie Edwards is another family member, and Judith's mother. She gets the award for being the oldest here today, Bobby Steele, and she's a farmer and rancher herself. Her husband
They farmed and ranched near the Haskell Experiment Station for many, many years, so they know about weather. But thanks to all of you, my extended family, for being here. You know, a lot of factors are involved in the success of the Oklahoma Mesonet, but I think there are two real keys. One, and it's been alluded to already, is the long-standing partnership between the two universities. Both OU and OSU bring real strengths to the table, I think, and it's been a good marriage, and the collaboration has really been fantastic. It's actually been fun to work on, as well as all of the results that have come from that. And I think the other key is the excellence of our staff. They're really second to none. We're so fortunate to have employees who work extremely hard, and they're really good at what they do. When you put that together, a good work ethic and really, really good at what they do, great things happen. And they really care, Blayne, about serving the citizens of our state, and the farmers and the ranchers and the school kids and the agencies, the emergency management folks, everybody that we serve. They care about that. They want to make a difference, and I think it shows in the quality of our network. I'd like to call out a whole bunch of people by name. A lot of those have already been introduced. But I see a few in the audience I want to mention. The guy that brought me here as an employee at OSU is here. Tom Hahn was head of it was then called Ag Engineering Department. He hired me as a young kid right out of PhD program back in 1981, Tom. It's been a couple years ago, hadn't it? But I've always appreciated his, I think I learned a lot about leadership and management from Tom. He did a great job. And sitting down the road from me, Gary Shear, we were reminiscing earlier. Gary currently works for the division and spends a lot of time at the state capitol. Back when we were first ginning up the Mesonet, he was State Secretary Commissioner of Agriculture. And he was one of those that in the early years we went into his office with our handouts, say, "Sir, could you please come up with $25,000? We're going to put it with some other agencies, $25,000. We're going to try to keep this thing going just a little longer." And Gary was one of those that jumped on board and said, "Yes, I'll do that." So I'll never forget that. And Jürgen Garbrecht is here. Where's Jürgen? We haven't said anything about the Agricultural Research Service, but he's a long-time engineer with the USDA Agricultural Research Service, currently at El Reno, and they've been one of our Mesonet partners for about 20 years now. And Jürgen and I go all the way back to graduate school at Fort Collins a long time ago. So that's just a few in the audience in addition to those. And I know I'm skipping people, but I wanted to mention them. From the very beginning, we've used the concept of a steering committee. You've heard that referenced, to oversee the development and the operation of the Mesonet. I've been blessed to serve on that committee with a number of highly capable, dedicated individuals. Many of those have been introduced earlier today. We seem to know how to reach a consensus on things. We'll debate, and none of us are shy about putting in our 2 cents. But at the end of the day, we seem to come to a consensus. I don't know if I can remember a vote that wasn't unanimous. And that's just not because we rubber stamp stuff. We debate it, we discuss it, we reach consensus. And I think most all of our collective decisions have been good ones. And I may be a little biased in that, of course, but I think for the most part they've been good decisions. One of those steering committee members was the late Ken Crawford. He was mentioned earlier. For many years, Ken was OSU's point person on the Mesonet. And we're really still benefiting from his vision and dedication. He was a good friend and a colleague, and I know we all still miss him. Another very key individual in Mesonet's history was Governor Henry Bellman. As a farmer and rancher up the road north here, and a statesman, certainly a statesman. We need more of those right now, don't we? He understood the value of a statewide weather network, and he was responsible for securing for us that initial funding that allowed us to plan and build the Mesonet. And we used to kid him years after that. We would say that it must have been the shock of OSU and OU coming together to him, asking for the same thing in the same room at the same time. It must have inspired him to say, yes, we want to do this. But Governor Bellman had some of that vision for sure. So in closing, let me say that there's many outstanding folks that have contributed on the Mesonet team to success. We've been blessed with excellent support from university administrators, from regents, from the legislature, and we don't take that for granted. In all honesty, it feels like I've just been along for the ride. I mean that sincerely. It's been a great ride. It's been a fun ride, and the ride still continues, which is even better. So again, thank you all very much for being here. I greatly appreciate this honor. It's very touching. Thank you.
Well, we do thank you for being here, as Ron said, and this is a teaching and demonstration site, so one of the things we're going to do this afternoon is set up with some information. Ryan is going to set up a rain gauge for that demonstration, but we'd like you to invite you to take a look around the site, ask any questions that you have. There'll be Mesonet folks here to help provide that information. We also have cookies, tea, lemonade, coffee, hot cider, so lots of refreshments as well. So thank you very much.
All right, we're going to end here.